Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show, where we help you make the wisest and most profitable decisions. My name is Dr. Gleb Tsipursky. I'm the CEO of Disaster Avoidance Experts, the future of work consultancy that sponsors the Wise Decision Maker Show. And today I want to talk with you about why a forced return to the office leads to worker power, increased worker power. Now, we've seen extensive employee pushback among return to office mandates. For example, there were many Amazon employees who resisted the new return to office policy that Amazon imposed in the spring of 2023. In fact, over 30,000 employees signed a petition against this policy, and over 750 actually staged a walkout and a public protest against this policy on the first day of return to work. And this policy and the pushback from employees aligns with other prominent companies like Disney, Starbucks, Tesla, and Google, and so on. Now, what's happening? Why are companies even doing this in the first place? Well, companies tend to claim that they need to return to the office for the sake of productivity. So Elon Musk is a prominent advocate of the return to office. He claims that remote workers are just pretending to work. They're pretending to work, they're phoning it in. All of these similar claims at this privileged laptop class. And Disney's CEO Bob Iger claims that nothing can replace the ability to connect, observe, and create when you're together with peers, which again comes from that in-person physical activity. But that's not really what we're seeing from the evidence. Let's talk about the power and the benefits of remote work. Remote work actually ends up empowering workers through facilitating autonomy. And we know that autonomy is fundamentally important to people's creativity, to people's ability to be creative. Decentralizing power. So decentralizing power, people are able to congregate and collaborate together more effectively across boundaries. It prevents micromanagement, and we know that Elon Musk and others are known as extreme micromanagers. These factors are key for the modern knowledge economy. Research shows that they boost innovation, improve productivity, and increase employee engagement. So what's going on with the rise of worker power? Old school managers like Bob Iger, Elon Musk, they favor rigid and top-down structures. So Elon Musk is very much known as an extreme micromanager. He himself acknowledges that. But such a rigid approach is not really suitable for the modern economy, I can tell you that. This mismatch is what leads employees fighting these authoritarian mandates and results in empowered workers and labor unions. So what's going on? Well, what are the employer strategies? So the shift in worker power is happening in the context of extremely large, comparatively speaking, tech layoffs. Companies are less willing to offer a variety of perks like remote work. And Twitter and other companies are in fact using mandates to prompt voluntary quitting and avoid having to provide severance pay. In fact, I was talking to the CHRO of a company that provides significant flexibility to its staff, and she was telling me about another company whose CHRO she was talking to. So CHRO's Chief Human Resource Officer that acknowledged that they were using return to office mandates as severance to have people quit and not pay severance. So it's actually very much happening, and we can clearly see this. Anxious workers, as a result, are kind of hesitant of requesting remote work because of this economic situation. Still, these strategies are clearly backfiring. So for example, we are seeing them leading to an increase in labor union organizing. And there are a number of labor unions that are specifically being created because of return to office mandates that are seen as unfair, not based on any evidence. Employees might be anxious about their jobs, but together they form a labor union because they can press their case together, since unemployment rate is pretty low at under 4%. And in fact, tech workers who are laid off, that's an issue, they're finding new jobs in 3 months or less, showing the strengths of the labor market in tech work and others. So let's talk about some case studies just to illustrate what's actually going on. YouTube contractors in Texas went on strike. So these are people who are working for Alphabet, which is the owner of Google, YouTube, and other companies, against rules requiring them to report to the office. Most of these contractors were hired during the pandemic and always worked remotely. and workers say that 19 an hour isn't enough to cover the relocation costs, which the company isn't paying for. So the workers sought to have Google and Cognizant, which Cognizant is their contractor under which Google hired them, to be recognized as joint employees. And so this is a strike centered around remote work and the legal structure of that contract. Another example. The Canadian federal government ordered public service workers to return to the office up to 3 days a week. But a survey of 14,000 public service workers revealed that 75% of them, of these Canadian government workers, preferred working from home. And Mark Briere, the Union of Taxation Employee President, says that it's unnecessary for all workers to return to the office, and there are many similar statements by union leaders. So they end up negotiating a settlement requiring an individual assessment of roles for time spent in the office. And that's definitely a much better approach, where you individualize the reasons for why do you return to the office, how much time do you spend there, to customize it to the individual needs of the person. Now, the reasoning for this return to the office often stems from cognitive biases, which are the kind of mistakes that we have in our minds because of how our mind is wired. For example, many leaders say that, well, I can't be confident that the workers are actually working, so I want to have control over them working, and that's why I'm having them come to the office. Microsoft research says that 87% of managers don't feel confident that their workers are working when they're working remotely. And that's an example of serious poor decision-making, of lack of trust of your employees. So cognitive biases lead us to make decisions that are not based on the facts, but beliefs and prior experience. And so employers making decisions based on these biases overlook the negative consequences of their actions for their own sakes, for the bottom line of their companies. One example of a cognitive bias is called the confirmation bias. That's a tendency to seek out and interpret information in ways that confirms our prior, pre-existing beliefs. So employers are seeking out information that supports the return to the office while ignoring information that contradicts the dangers of returning to the office. So this can lead to retention challenges and resistance by employees through worker power, through various unionizing efforts, through various public activism. So that's a big problem. And another big problem that I see, and by the way, I've helped over 24 companies by now, on nonprofits and government organizations figure out their return to office. So I know what I'm talking about with these cognitive biases. Status quo bias is another big one. It's a tendency to prefer that things stay as they are. So employers are resistant to change even if remote work is beneficial. If you think about it, you can understand why these CEOs and managers, executive directors, whatever position they are in, they've been successful for 20, 30 years through leading in the office, and they know how to do that. They're comfortable with it. So they want to do what feels comfortable to them, even if allowing a significant amount of hybrid and remote work is beneficial. By ignoring the benefits of remote work, employees risk alienating their workers and creating a situation where they're more likely to unionize. And also, when they are unionized, to be more likely to use that to oppose further activities in the return to office, creating a lot of tensions and conflicts that are unnecessary. So, I encourage employers to embrace remote and hybrid work for a more productive workforce. So employers should recognize the value of remote work and work with employees to create remote work arrangements that meet their needs, meaning hybrid work, meaning some time in the office, some time working remotely. For some people, maybe full-time remote work, but really customize it to the needs of each individual role and focusing on having teams make the decisions on what works best for them. Employers who do so will enjoy a more productive workforce. Those who refuse to adapt will really risk falling behind and losing competitive advantage due to employee backlash. So fighting remote work without a good reason is what enables worker power, and employers who recognize this will be positioned to succeed. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show. Please make sure to subscribe wherever you checked out the show and leave a review. It helps others discover the show, and it helps us improve the show.